Good morning, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the weekly energies for today's Monday's Musings on the 15th of May 2023. Now the energy feels very clear, it feels very direct, and I'm going to get on with looking at the cards in a moment, but there are a few things that can come through even when the energy is clear and direct, and that feels quite key this morning, and perhaps no, it is just this morning. It feels very key this morning on the Monday to allow that needs to be said to be said. Now when we do that, we are going to get a lot of other insights and a lot of other messages coming through if we can stand in the recognition that things can be simple, things can be clear. So let's feel into that, and that feels important, to feel into that potential, to not fill the gaps. So I know that Mercury, I think, has finished its retrograde. Well, do I know or do I think? That feels very relevant this week. What do we know and what do we think we know? That feels incredibly pivotal this week. I know that Mercury has stopped going retrograde. I know that it has a shadow period afterwards, but I also know that this shadow period is going to be cleared so quickly that it's going to feel as if Mercury is direct, fast moving, and has been all this time. When in reality, actually, Mercury has, because Mercury doesn't go backwards, it just slows down. Now, that feels quite important, that we recognise that when we do slow things down, it's not that we're going backwards, but that actually we're really connecting to a deeper, more intuitive wisdom that helps us to move forward quicker, clearer, more simplified. There's going to be a lot coming up with communication this week, of course, because of Mercury, but of course because we need to state what it is we need to state. We need to say what it is we need to say and recognise where we need to communicate from. So as you can see from my lip, there's clearing going on for me in regards to communication this week already. And I'm working with the serpent. While I pass on the moon key rights, we're actually in the space of the serpent and we're moving into the direction of Jaguar. So there is a lot of shadow there being shed in regards to how we communicate and how we listen as well. So again, it's going back to that shadow period and it's going to be very quick. There's a lot of work that has been done, a lot of acknowledgement, a lot of healing, whatever you want to call it, but it's that final tip of the iceberg. And what I see is the iceberg of Freud, the ego and the id. And yeah, it's really recognizing what's been underneath it all, the core wound in regards to communication this week and what we're trying to cover up. So this morning I was really tempted to put lipstick. I don't wear makeup. It's not a judgment, it's not an opinion. I just don't. For many reasons. One, I can't be bothered. Kudos to those that do take the time to really make the most of their appearance, because it's a long-term commitment, right? But also it irritates my skin. But this morning I really felt like putting lipstick on to cover up this sore, which straight away was a message to me not to cover up where we are sore this week. And that feels like key, to expose, to allow air to the wound, to just breathe and pause and allow this simplified energy to come through, because we are going to get to the bottom of a lot of the core concerns that need to be communicated, because we need to be heard. They need to be heard. Pachamama needs to be heard. So the Earth Mother needs to be heard. Now, the reason I say that is the deck that I'm going to work with are the Wildwood Tarot. And I just took the lid off. Again, there's going to be so many insights that come through when we just look at the more simplified things in life. So if we can take the time to really be present and look at what is going on, look at what is in front of us, look at what we are uncovering this week, the in-depth messages there are going to be quite profound and beautiful. So I took the lid off, okay? I uncovered what was hidden in the box, Pandora's box, if you will, again this week. And what I noticed out of all of this, the whole image, I noticed the drama, I noticed one behind me, I noticed that I'm here to just give a nice direct message on how to best navigate the energies this week. So I noticed my place, my beat, my rhythm. I noticed this. Oh. Oh. But actually, if you look at it backwards, it's ho. Now, when we do the medicine wheel, we say the word ho, and when we do any sacred ceremonies, we say the word ho, and we say it, I say it for recognition, to know that you have been heard. You know, and when people, ourselves included, recognize something, when we really hear something on a soul level, there's that oh moment, or ho moment. Now, I struggled with the word included then, and I felt like I wanted to say occluded, you know, where we cover something up, and that does really feel like key this week. Where are we blocking ourselves? Where do we need to listen? What moments, what aha moments are there for us that we are uncovering in regards to our own beat and our own ability to communicate with simplicity and recognize the messages around us? Because the other thing I noticed on here, the Wildwood Tarot, but wherein wisdom resides. So where is the wisdom for you? Where are the answers for you? The other thing that came up this morning is to ask for help. And mine actually came from an area that, not that I struggle with, that I believe I don't resonate with, but actually I do. And really underneath that is a big core wound in regards to my own light. So this week, really looking at where the wisdom actually resides for you, you know, what really helps you connect to who you are, what really helps you find your own rhythm and beat this week. Where do you feel held? Where do you feel seen? From there, you can get those aha or oh or ho moments. Okay, so with that in mind, we're ahead of the game this morning, which feels really nice. And then I feel like a shadow energy reminded me not to get too cocky. So the other thing that came through this morning was humility, you know, being humble. And by being humble, I don't mean groveling. I don't mean, you know, begging, praying on your knees and please have mercy. I don't mean that, unless that is what you feel you need to do. What I mean is recognizing your place in the world, and not your place, know your place, but know your place. You know that what is your responsibility and what isn't, and ask for help with the rest this week. Really feels like key. When we know who we are, when we find our beat and our rhythm, you know, we may realize that a lot of the things we've been concerned with or trying to achieve even are a far greater vision than we can ever imagine. And from that perspective, needs more help, needs other people so that they can fulfill what they need to fulfill, need other vibrational beings so that they can continue, especially ancestors this week, so that they can help, so that they can receive their healing as well. We are not alone, contrary to popular belief, and that's not even we are not alone, even though that's wonderful. It is, we are not alone, and we are not alone in the world we're trying to create, and there are other people that have parts that need to be added, like a magical cauldron this week. And being open to embrace that, being open and brave enough to ask for help where we need that, from a place of humility, you know, to keep it, yeah, just a place of humility. I heard keep it light and simple, and humility is the key this week. Okay, so with that in mind, with that humility, knowing that I don't need to know everything, King of Arrows, I don't need to know everything before we start the reading. It is about moving out the way and doing what we're asked to do this week. What are the energies like, and how can we best navigate them? How can we best navigate the energies this week? I just saw a big strip of light come into the cards then, just as I'm pulling up the card of the shaman or the magician in this deck. And this is what I saw, a big stream of light coming in. How can we best navigate it? By being the bridge, by being the Chicana, heaven to earth, by, you know, really looking at our own stuff, looking at where we communicate from, our own stuff, where we communicate from, what is being heard, what is being seen, what is being spoken through all of our actions. And really observing how we can get from where we are to where we want to be, and how we bridge that difference this week. Okay. So for me, it will be ceremonies and rituals. And again, it's that wherein wisdom resides. Find a way that helps you to do that. Find a way that helps you find the answers that you're looking for, and how to best step forward now, how to best become. That's what I hear, become. Okay, so energies this week and how to navigate them. Become them. Embody them. Embody what is going on. Be present. Be at one, be at peace with what is going on. So one of the things, Nine of Stones, tradition. one of the things I really felt this morning was to be at peace with where we are, which isn't easy. And guys, I'm really not saying, oh, meditate your troubles away, be at peace, ignore what is going on. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, until we can acknowledge where we are, we're going to manifest from a knee-jerk, unrealistic reaction. So having peace or acceptance or presence, maybe it's that word we need to use, presence with where we are, and then asking for help from there. Okay. And that card is the Nine of Pentacles, but it's got underneath it tradition, and really looking at how we may have done that ancestrally, how our family asked for help. Card just fallen out. Three of Vessels, which is joy, Page of Bows, and underneath we do have the Stag here. Okay, so in this deck, I do believe strength is in the place of justice, and justice is in the place of strength. So in the original Rider-Waite deck, this would be strength. In this deck, it is actually justice. Either way, we have a drum here. Either way, we have the Stag here. We have that deep earthly connection and those high receptive antlers that go up to source, and the ability to bang our drum to that, to find our beat to that. So looking at your own way this week, not the traditions that have been handed down to you, or finding your own tradition within that. Okay, so that's where I feel the energy getting a little bit complicated. A lot of opinions, a lot of insights, a lot of values, a lot of ideas, well-meaning ideas, but it's time to find our own path now. Yeah, because it's that that's going to bring the happiness. The Ten of Vessels here. It's that emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to act on what we feel as well. And if we're not acknowledging what we feel, and we're not acknowledging actions that we need to take based on that, and we're doing what other people suggest, then that's not emotional intelligence, or at least not our emotional intelligence. Saw a post the other day about the Judas syndrome. Now, I'd never heard of the Judas syndrome, but it really clarified a lot of areas in my life, not only what I had experienced, but what I had projected onto others, and I'm humble enough to admit that. I'm humble enough to admit that we all go through a journey, and we all have sores, right? And we all communicate that soreness. And really looking at how I do that and how that's been done to me as well, and the flow that brings into everything that I create. Being very aware of that this week, very aware of whether or not we are creating from our own emotions or those around us. Taking time out, guys, really take time out to think about what it is you want based on you, what it is you need based on you. So I'm seeing the Maslow triangle, the hierarchy of needs. Okay, really looking, well worth googling it actually, really googling and looking at the Maslow hierarchy of needs if you haven't, because it's the foundation. Is everything in place? Are your basic needs being met? Do you feel safe enough to do what you're doing? Do you feel fed, warm, nurtured, cared for? Really going back to basics. So we have what do we have? Four of Bows celebration, but we have the new moon in Taurus, I think Thursday, and then we have Mars, I think, going into Leo. So we have the opportunity to really ground in some deep-seated ambitions and drives here, but going back to basics. Are we ready to embrace that? Are we up to par? That's what I hear. Are we up to par? And if not, starting to put those steps into place, building our foundations. Okay, so let's break it down. And that's when my third eye is really itching. Let's break it down. Let's break down this vision. I can see a sun coming out from behind the clouds. What do we have? Ace of Stones, the foundations of life. Let's break down this vision. Let's physically start again. Let's really start to look at what it is we're trying to achieve and how to realistically do that. How can we bridge that? How can we become the magician? What steps do we actually need to put into place here? Right. We're going to look at the energies of this week. We have the Six of Bows, which is abundance at the bottom of the pack. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. 2 for Friday. Saturday, Sunday. Oh, 2 for overall. So at the bottom of the pack, we have the 6 of bows, which is abundance. And it feels very key here, if we're going to have any victory, to really look at what abundance means to us, to really look at what our driving force, our driving passion is. For some, it's money. For some, it's health. For some, it's relationships. It can actually be 6 things, and really, really looking at them. So if it's all different aspects for you, what's at the core of that? How does that feel? So if you want the relationship, and you want the home, and you want the money, and you want the job, and you want the recognition, and all these drives and desires, they're all things, they're all arrows that you're aiming for. But if you don't recognize the very flame underneath it all, the very fire that's guiding them underneath it all this week, that's going to be a little bit of areas that may need harmony. So what is your actual driving force? You, your soul. The victory comes from really connecting to your own light this week. Everything else sort of shoots off as a result, but really, really connecting to that this week, finding harmony with who you are. So overall, we have the moon and oh gosh, the moon and the hanged man here. Okay, so we have the moon on the water and the hanged man here. And what I notice in both of these cards is the reflection. We have the hanged man, and she's looking in the mirror, or she's holding onto the mirror and the moon, and she's seeing the moon as a reflection, seeing any shadow aspects this week, any illusionary aspects this week, any emotions this week as a reflection of where we're at. And she's not actually looking into the mirror, so I don't want to see that. Okay, so just being open to that, and the transition that happens as a result. So in the background here, I don't know if you can see, there's a boat with a figure in going down the river Styx, and it's that death there. Okay, so a death and a rebirth here, because we also have what looks like a heron at the front. I do believe that is a heron with a medicine pouch around its neck. Okay, so recognizing the cycles, recognizing the reflections of real transition here, deep change here that is and wants to continue occurring, but also knowing where we are in our own cycle in regards to that. So on the Monday, we have 9 of bows, which is respect. Now, what I'm being drawn to think about is what I was saying about Monday, what I was saying about the energy, and I can't remember. So maybe having to go back and respect what we have already known, what we have already mentioned, what we have already said on the Monday, so as not to be too defensive or repetitive of the messages and the lessons here, to really respect the wisdom that we've gained and to use that to move forward. On the Tuesday, we have the ancestor or the hierophant, and this is the picture on just my elbow just fell off the table. It's like manners. So we have respect of that humility and that manner in life, and that's different for us all. We're all brought up with different values and different traditions, but what is good manners to you feels key over the Monday and the Tuesday, and to really embrace and embody that. On the Tuesday, we have the ancestor, we have the hierophant, we have the same image that is on the lid. Now that feels like key, that the same image that is outside of the information of the messages is identical to what is guiding us forward on the Tuesday. And that is the ultimate lesson here. What we are seeing being a reflection of where we're at. Now that doesn't mean that we see someone's behavior and we think, oh, I need to take that on board as my own. That's that Judas syndrome, okay? That's that people sharing their pain and their soreness and expecting you to live it out for them. What I mean by that is, where am I at when I feel this? And I really feel like a guidance over my solar plexus. Where am I at? A guarding over my solar plexus, actually. So if we feel it in the solar plexus, to guard that area and let that guide us. That's our soul energy. That's our ancestral energy guiding us forward, our soul family, our soul tribe. So, if we're feeling like, actually, I don't want to be in this energy, then don't. It doesn't always mean that there's things for you to learn or things for you to take on. What it means is it helps you recognize where you actually are. That's the whole point of the external. When the soul goes on a trip around the medicine wheel, it comes out of unity consciousness into the unknown. It then becomes aware of what it needs to learn, what it needs to heal, so that it can go back to the unity consciousness. So it experiences life. So we can see things externally. It can affect us. Doesn't mean it has to be a lesson that we take on. We can say, I'm done, actually. I'm past that. I don't need to do that anymore. And then we come back into that unity consciousness, or not. Maybe it will affect us. It is about recognizing the Monday and the Tuesday where we actually are. From that perspective, on the Wednesday, we then have the Ace of Arrows. We have the breath of life. Now, this reminds me of the eye in the chalk drawing of the horse on, I think it's Kent, the white horse. I can't remember completely where it may be. Now, the reason I share that is I've always been guided to go there, and I must go there. So where we are guided to go, what we are guided to do on the Wednesday, is the very breath of our own soul's wisdom, to really listen to that and to act on it. Wednesday being really open to any insights, inspirations, ideas that we may have, and what steps we may need to take to move them forward, because on the Thursday we have creativity. Really grounding into these ideas, okay? Knowing that we are held, knowing that we are part of the plan, part of the foundations, part of the ancestral roots that are being passed on, okay? Part of the environment and the world that we are trying to create, but also that everyone else is as well, that we're all connected as well. So that's going to help with the Monday and Tuesday energy. If anything is triggering, recognizing that it's all there as part of a root of a far greater picture that is occurring here. Because on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, now when I drew the cards for Friday, there's 2 of them, and I felt a little bit of root excitement. I felt like I needed to have a wee. I felt like, energy was stirring up there, and now I can really feel it in my crown. So on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, make sure you know where you are and keep reflecting back over the steps that you've done, so that you know what day of the week it is come Friday, because it feels like it's very simple this week, but actually the changes underneath it all are quite monumental, and the soul is going to know that, and the body is going to know that. Even if we feel like it may be a mundane week, there's a lot of shifts here. So on the Friday we have the new moon. On the Thursday with the 3 of Stones, the creativity, really asking for that help, really being open to receive it. And on the Friday we have Leo, Mars going into Leo. I think Jupiter has gone into Taurus at one point as well, before the new moon. I think that's already happened. So we have big, expansive, grounding potential here. Ground control to Major Tom. That's what I hear. Yeah, David Bowie. It is trippy for those that can really feel the subtle energies this week. It's going to feel a bit trippy, so very important to remain grounded. Very important for those of a more sensitive nature, more aware nature, shall we say, to really get time in nature, to really separate yourself if you need to for a while and connect back to your own roots. Again, it is about finding your own rhythm this week, and anything that isn't of that is going to knock us quite significantly into, I see the exercise boards, that core strength that we're trying to build here. Because on the Friday we have the King of Stones, which is the wolf, and the King of Vessels, which is the heron. And it's the heron that is applicable all week here. It is remembering that it's all about birth. Herons bring in birth. But how do they do it? They balance in the emotions. They find harmony in the flow. Okay, they stand tall, they stand proud, but they're also humble, knowing that at any moment that current could take them over. So they need to find their own strength here as well. They know their place in the wider scheme of things. We also then have the King of Stones, the wolf. So being really emotionally grounded on the Friday is going to be key. Okay, because there's that moon again from the energy all week. We are going to see cycles, we are going to see patterns, we are going to see our own creative illusions, and it's going to be a bit eye-opening emotionally this week. So just being really, really aware of that, because on the Saturday we do have the 8 of Arrows, which is struggle. All these mindsets, all these traditions, all these values, all these ideas, what are we actually aiming for here? Well, as you can see in this card, the 8 of Arrows, this character has taken the light that was originally from the fire originally from the burning source. And no matter how much of a struggle it is that they're carrying to see their way forward. And underneath we have the World card and the Ace of Stones and the Sun of Life. Really, really, really carrying that. I've moved the cards around. Okay, so if we can carry our light forward through every struggle this week, if we can remember what the driving force is, what the passion is, with humility this week, then it's that's going to bring the victory on Saturday. And we do have the potential of flipping the narrative. Finding the victory in the struggles is going to be key as well. On the Sunday, we have the Nine of Stones, which just popped back up. Tradition. So really looking at your own this week. How do you cope with things? How do you create with things? How do you transmute energy? What works for you? What no longer works for you? What traditions have been handed down? And what traditions will you be passing forward this week? Okay, so with that in mind, let's oversee what is occurring. And that feels like key. Overseeing what is occurring here, witnessing ourselves and each other. To do that, we're going to separate the major arcana from the minor. We're going to separate what is going on externally from our own actions. Major arcana wise, we have the Moon, the Hermit, and the Hierophant. We can see from all different perspectives. We can see all different angles. We can see the illusion behind everything. But what are we learning? What are we discovering about ourselves? It's not about how we pass that information on to others. It's about how we communicate that sense, that wisdom, that knowing within us. That's the biggest thing to see this week. There's lots there about cycles of change. There's lots there about teaching. There's lots there about ancestral work. There's lots there about emotions. There's lots there about the new moon. There's lots there about astrology. But if we cannot see ourselves for the cycles, for the changes, for the stars, for the teachers, for the lessons, for the energy that we are, it's always going to be outside of us. We're being gifted a great opportunity for unity consciousness this week with ourselves, to bring it all back home. In order to truly move forward, it's that rebirth, that death moment, to respect ourselves. So one card wise, we have two wands. And that's the Nine of Wands and the Six of Wands. And in this deck, they're called bows. And that feels really important, to recognise that every fire we have, every flame we have, every desire we have, whether they burn us out, whether they're an initial spark, they are all bows. They are all opportunities to hunt for what we need, to take aim, to really pull ourselves back, stretch and focus towards what it is we are trying to achieve. And that's the biggest energy this week, if you take anything from this reading, to respect that. To respect every endurance, to respect everything that you go through as an opportunity to create abundance in your life. That's for me, or it isn't for me. But either way, it's going to help me build the life that I'm trying to build. And to really appreciate that, rather than be defensive of that, to open to it. To open to your own journey this week. It feels like key. And there's two wand cards there. So we're really coming to an end of how things were, if we can harmonise and reconnect to the light behind it all and keep that balance. We then have, is it just the one? Yeah, interesting. I was looking for more. And I know why I'm looking for more. The wand cards here, because they're called bows, I see the swords as the arrows, and straight away I think I need more arrows. But actually, there's one sword card, and it's the Ace of Swords. It's the Ace of Arrows, the breath of life. Again, we're going back to that one idea, that one connection, that one vision that you have, and taking time to really embrace that this week. Taking time to see. So here Mine is the horse. Okay, yeah. It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. Because remember, at the top of the pack, wherein wisdom resides. Yeah, now horse medicine for me, there's great wisdom there because of the balance of their hooves on the earth, their freedom, their huge heart, massive heart, their empathy, their ability to reflect back where we are, their healing, their, the way that they help us as a species move forward, how they carry us to move forward, and their great connection to source. So for me, that's wherein the wisdom resides. This week, we're being really asked to figure that out. What is affecting our vision? Where is our vision coming from? What is the breath of life that we are creating? To really, really look at that connection this week. And there is only one, and it is about us and source, us and who we think we are and our place here. Yes, okay, fair enough. So I'm just looking at my microphone. I'm wondering if it's on mute, actually. I don't think it is, but I'm just looking at my microphone and it's got the word blue written underneath. And today I noticed that I was wearing blue and black, and I had the words black and blue until you're black and blue, and it feels like a bit of a battle here this week that could continue physically if we don't look at the blue, if we don't look at the communication that is occurring. The other thing that came through was talking until we're blue in the face. Really looking at how simplifying our conversations can bring that clear, swift change that we're looking for. So a lot of the times when we over-explain, it's because we're uncertain. So feeling into that this week as we move on to the stone cards, the pentacles, and for that we have 3, which is creativity. So there is a great opportunity of birth here, but we have 3 within the 3. Excuse me. There is a clearing trying to come there, and the higher heart and the throat chakra, holding our hands out, stretching our hands out in regards to how we create and who we are willing to connect to in order to create. There's a real collective collaboration coming there, but there needs to be healing with that, because we have the 3 within the 3. So we have 3 pentacle cards here, but we also have the 3 of pentacles within that. So it's kind of like I see an egg with a shell around it, and it's looking at our barriers, and they are barriers, they're not boundaries. Really, really acknowledging the difference between barriers and boundaries this week. That's not to say change them, that's your journey, but at least recognize the difference. Because once you recognize a barrier has come from the need for protection, you can then truly respect what a boundary can do. Okay, so it's recognizing the shadow and the light this week is going to bring that creativity forward. It is all about tradition. Here we have the serpent in the hand. I'm not quite sure what he has in that one. It almost looks like a serpent bracelet. So he's taken the serpent here, the healing, and made a creative piece of jewelry from it. He's made form. And that is transformation. It's not about getting rid of things. It's not about pushing things to one side. The amount of people that come for healing because they have not liked something about themselves and pushed it to one side, and that leads to a soul loss here. And that seems to be the tradition that we're passing on. If we don't like something, we cover it up. Yeah, the sore. If something's sore or raw, we cover it up. And I totally acknowledge and respect when that is needed. And I'm not suggesting we go out there, guns are blazing, heart open, this is who I am, I'm really raw and vulnerable if we don't feel safe. It's that Maslow's triangle, ensuring that our needs are met. But once they are met, and we know when they are, respecting that vulnerability is what's going to take the healing and craft it into something beautiful. It is about taking everything that we have experienced, everything we have learned, everything we've endured, and really bringing a warmth, a fire, a transformation from it. For some that will be writing, for some that will be crafting things, for some that will be loving our spouses more because we're more vulnerable, or ourselves, whatever that may be this week. Really embodying the changes, because that's what we do when we create from change. We embody what has occurred. We become the king of stones. So that moon, that emotion that once called to us in such a wild, sulker, undomesticated manner, doesn't become something that we fight or fear. It becomes something we long to see, so that we can howl back, so that we can say, I heard you, emotions, and this is what I've crafted, this wisdom that is passed down the family line then, because the wolf is the family and tradition. Okay, and we then have one cup card, and it's the King of Cups. It is very much about flowing our actions with our emotions this week. Now, there is more to that, or at least there feels like there needs to be more to that. Like I need to go deeper, or there needs to be more substance. It needs to feel more, and actually that feels very poignant this week, to really look at the impact that we have had on the masculine, our own and collectively, that they need to feel more, they need to be more deep. I know sometimes I look at my husband and I think, oh, wonder what he's thinking, really feeling like it must be something really deep, and actually it's not. Sometimes it is. That's not to say he's not deep, but what I'm saying here is embrace the flow of the masculine. Sometimes it can be really simple and light, and this week it does feel like there's that potential. So allowing the light, fun moments when they're here is what's going to help us embrace the more shadow aspects as and when needed, and be open as the feminine as a result to receive any masculine actions required. So really, really, really looking at any imposed expectations we have on the masculine this week is going to be key, not only with ourselves individually, but collectively, and the relationships that are being reflected back to us, because we have the Hanged Man at the beginning of the week, and remembering the Hanged Man, the Christ consciousness, the Buddha consciousness, Odin, however you want to see it, is a masculine figure, as a masculine archetype here. So it is an action based, not forgetting that. It's wonderful to see things from all different perspectives, and it's wonderful to want certain things, but unless we put things into action, they are always going to be external. They're not going to be internal. When we take on board an idea, we are conceiving. When we embrace the shadow, we are bringing that energy into us to conceive on a feminine basis, and then we create. And that, my friends, is sacred union. Take care. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.